Today, we're diving into one of the most talked about and, let's be honest, controversial books on strategy ever written, Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power.
Now, this book has a bit of a reputation, right? Some people call it a cynical masterpiece, others see it as a dangerous how-to guide for manipulators. But you know what? It's often really misunderstood. So today, we're going to unpack its core idea by looking at what happens when you ignore the unwritten rules of the game.
And the book kicks off with this really powerful, very human idea. We all want some control over our own lives. The argument in the 48 Laws of Power is that to get that control, you first have to understand power. Not as you wish it was, but as it actually is. To really see what that means in the real world, let's jump back in time. We're going to look at a classic historical story that perfectly shows what happens when good intentions smash head-on into the cold, hard realities of power.
Okay, so picture this. We're in the court of the Sun King, Louis XIV. This was one of the most glamorous, but also one of the most treacherous places in history. A world of incredible luxury, yeah, but also full of nonstop scheming and very, very fragile egos. And right at the center of this world, second only to the king himself, was a guy named Nicolas Fouquet. He was brilliant, charismatic, and everyone thought he was essential to the crown, a total rising star. So, to celebrate his brand new mansion, Fouquet decides to throw a party for the king. And when I say a party, I mean the party of the century. No expense was spared. We're talking the absolute finest food, the best entertainment. The whole thing was designed to be the ultimate tribute. Now, in Fouquet's mind, this incredible party was just a big show of loyalty. He's thinking, my glory is your glory, my king. It was meant to be a gesture of pure devotion. But yeah, the king did not see it that way, at all. He looked around and saw a subject who had a more magnificent home than he did, a host who was being celebrated more than he was. He didn't feel honored. He felt upstaged. The consequence was swift, and it was brutal. The very next day, the king's guards arrested Fouquet on some made-up charges. He would spend the rest of his life in prison and die there 20 years later. So, what on earth just happened? You see, Fouquet wasn't a traitor. His real crime, the thing that cost him everything, was his failure to understand a fundamental, unwritten rule of power. And this is the rule he broke. Law number 1. By showing off his talents, his taste, and his wealth so extravagantly, he made the master, the king, feel insecure. He made him feel threatened, and that, right there, was his fatal error. According to Robert Greene, history is just littered with stories like Fouquet's. People who fall from grace, not because they're bad or malicious, but because they're naive. They just don't get that power has its own timeless logic, and if you break its rules, you're inviting disaster. Okay, so where do these laws even come from? This isn't just one author's opinion or hot take. No, they are lessons distilled from literally thousands of years of human history. Think of this book as a collection of wisdom. Greene digs through the history of ancient China, Renaissance Italy, and into the minds of some of history's greatest strategists and leaders to find the common threads, the patterns of power that repeat over and over again. And every single one of the 48 laws gets its own chapter, explained through historical examples of those who followed it and succeeded, and those who, like poor Fouquet, broke it and paid the price. And these laws cover a huge range of strategies. Law 4 advises you to basically just keep your mouth shut, because the more you say, the more likely you are to say something foolish. Law 8 is all about getting your rivals to come to you, to act on your terms. And Law 28 pushes you to act decisively, because hesitation just makes people doubt you, but boldness inspires confidence. It's really a complete tactical guide. So you might be thinking, okay, this is all a fascinating history lesson, but what does any of this have to do with my life today? Well, according to the book, it has everything to do with it. This right here is the central analogy of the entire book. The idea is that while the settings have changed, we've swapped palaces for office buildings, the fundamental human dynamics of power have not changed one bit. And the book makes this connection crystal clear. The king is now your CEO or your boss. The courtiers who are all scrambling for attention, they're your colleagues and competitors. And that royal favor they were so desperate for? Well, that's your next promotion or big project. Office politics is literally just modern court intrigue. So, since we can't be obvious about seeking power anymore, the book argues we have to master the art of being indirect, appearing fair and friendly on the surface while fully understanding the cunning game being played underneath. And all of this brings us to the book's most challenging and probably its most important conclusion. This is the core thesis, and it's the part that makes so many people uncomfortable. It argues that you shouldn't judge your rivals by what they say they want, but by the actual effects of their actions. Power isn't about good or evil. It's a game, and it has its own set of rules. The whole point of learning these rules isn't to become some kind of ruthless monster. It's to become a better observer, a smarter strategist, and to protect yourself from those who are already playing the game, whether you like it or not. It's a handbook on self-defense, really.
And that's the final, nagging question the book leaves us with. By pretending power doesn't exist, or by choosing to be naive and ignore it, are you really opting out, or are you just choosing to be a pawn in someone else's game? That's what the 48 Laws of Power really forces you to confront.